Welcome! In this video, we will take 3 separate CSV files and merge them together using R in an R script. Here's the scenario. You have been given this dataset and told it contains details of the number of births in Scotland in the period from 1997 to 2002. You look at the dataset and think, OK, the numbers are there, but I can't see where in Scotland the births have occurred, and this is something your user is asking for. To add this additional information, all you need to do is merge this CSV file with other files containing the hospital names and council areas. This involves only a few lines of R code, and this is our final script. Let's get started. In RStudio, I have set up a new R script and called it Births Scotland. I now need to go and source my data, and we will use data provided by Public Health Scotland. So if we go to their website, the data set which we will use is called Births by Hospitals, and I will provide a link to the data set in the video's description. But meantime, if we scroll down, we can see that our data set contains 7,951 records or rows, and it has currently 6 columns. However, it's not clear to read what information is contained within each column. For instance, looking coldly at this, what does CA mean? And what do the different hospital codes mean? And the last column, called SMR02 births, again, not clear what information is contained there. However, if we scroll down the page, we will find that a data dictionary has been provided to aid us with understanding the contents of these columns. And for CA, we see that there is a redirect to council area labels, which will provide us with more information. And for hospital, there is also a link to current NHS hospitals in Scotland. Again, this will provide us with more information for our data set. We can also see that SMR02 births relates to the number of births recorded. If we scroll back up to the top of the page, when we pull the CSV file into our R script, the heading columns seen here will also come in. We won't just get the data. So that's something to watch out for once we come to look at our R script. It'll pull in a header row, being these items, and then it will pull in an additional 7,951 records. Okay, enough said. Let's start bringing in our data. And to do that, it's very easy to do. All we do is go to the top of the page here where we've got the URL. I can right click on it and just copy the link address. We go to R. I will call the data frame births, and I will say to get the information for births, we are going to read dot a CSV, open brackets, open double quotes, and then I just paste in the URL link. I then come outside of my double quotes, put a comma, and as mentioned previously, we have a header row, so we need to put in header equals true. Then if I just run that line of code, you can see that it appears in the global environment. We have births, we have 7,951 observations or rows, and 5 variables or columns. And if you click on births, you can see the content of that data frame. What you will notice is we had 6 columns before and we've got 5 now. And the reason being is that the ID column did not come in with the CSV file. But in this scenario, that's not an issue because we have row numbers here, which are effectively going to act as our ID columns. I will now go back to the Public Health Scotland's website to gather the information for hospitals and councils. So back in our births by hospital dataset, we scroll down the page, and in Data Dictionary where we see CA, we just click on Council Area Labels. This time you can see that there are 44 records and there are actually 13 columns excluding the ID column. To bring in this dataset, again, all we need to do is go up to the top where we've got the URL with the CSV on the end of it, right click, copy the link address, go back to my R script, and in my Birth Scotland R script, I will set up a new data frame and call it council, and I will feed in, again, we're going to read.csv, open brackets, open double quotes, paste in my CSV file, come outside my double quotes, put a comma, and then type in header equals true, because again we had a header row. If I just run that, we can see council has come in with 44 observations in 13 variables, which is in line with expectations. Again, if you would like to see the contents, all you need to do is click on council. And you can see all our information has pulled in. So the last CSV we need to pull in is hospitals. So we go back again to our Public Health Scotland's website. So we're back in births by hospital dataset and scrolling down again. And hospital, we just click through again in our link. This time we have 277 records or rows, and we have 16 columns excluding the ID column. Again, we just go to the top of the page where we've got the URL which ends in CSV, right click, copy link address, back through to R in our Birth Scotland data script. I will set up a new data frame and call it hospital and feed in read.csv, open brackets, open double quotes, paste in my URL link, come outside the double quotes, put a comma, space, and then again we have a header row. So we are putting in header equals true. And then if I run this line of code, hospital comes in, and you can see we have 277 observations and 16 variables, which is in line with expectations. Again, clicking on hospital, you will see the contents that we have brought in to R. We are now ready to begin merging our datasets together. We will begin by merging hospitals with births. And the first thing we do is look for a column which is common between the two data frames. And if we go to births, our column common with hospital is the one called hospital. And we know that from when we looked at the data dictionary earlier. If we go to the hospital dataset, we don't have a column called hospital, but what we do have is a column called location. And that contains the same type of information as that in the births hospital column. So these are the two columns we will use for our merge. But before we can do the merge, we need to understand how many unique values are in the location column in hospital. To do that, we go back to our R script and we type in unique, open brackets, hospital, $ location. This would give us a list of unique values, but we want to know the number of unique values instead. So we need to, in front of the word unique, input the word length, open brackets, and then go to the end and put a closing bracket. Now we run that line of code. We can see that hospital's location column contains 277 unique values, And we can see that in our data set we have 277 observations. So that means that in the column location for each row there is a unique value relating to location. So that means it's a good column on which to perform our merge. And to do our merge, it's very simple. For the purposes of this video, I will set up a new data frame to take the merge. However, you don't need to do this. You can merge into your existing births dataset if you prefer. I will call my new data frame births_hospital, and I need to feed in the word merge, open brackets, then we put in the name of our two data frames. And it's very important here that you get the order of the data frames correct, otherwise you will end up with an incorrect answer. So we put in births first because births is the larger of the two data sets. It's got more rows to it. And we are going to look to do what's called a left join. So effectively, you bring in the births data frame with all its columns, and then we say we want to bring in the relevant information from hospitals. After we've merged our data sets, we want to end up with the same number of observations as we had previously. We don't want it to increase and we don't want it to decrease. We type in births, comma, then hospital, this is the name of our second one. Then we need to say which columns we want to do the merge on. So we type in by.x equals. Now x is referring to births. In a moment we'll do by.y and that will refer to hospital. So x relates to births, y relates to hospital. So by.x equals open double quote marks and the name of our column in births, which is hospital. Come outside the double quote marks, put a comma, by.y equals, open your double quotes, and remember in hospital our column is called location. Come outside our double quotes, put a comma, and then we do all.x equals true. So we're explicitly stating we want to do a left join. We want to have all the rows or observations in births remaining after we've done our merge. So all we need to do now is click the run button. And as you can see, our new data frame has been created for us. And we have 7,951 observations, which is in line with expectations, and we have 20 variables. Now, if we look at births beforehand, we had 5 variables, and hospitals we had 16. So if we add that together, we get 21 columns. However, when the merge occurred, the hospital and location columns were not each brought in separately as 2 columns. They were merged together and brought in as 1. Hence why we have 20 variables rather than 21. If we quickly take a look at our births hospital data frame by clicking on the name here, you can see that there is a column called ca.x. Previously it was called ca. The reason the .x has been added is because both hospitals and births had a column called CA. And R doesn't know if these two columns are related or not. So what it does is it adds on .x after the name because this came in from births. And as I mentioned earlier, births was classified as X. And if we scroll across, we can see we've got ca.y, which is the CA column which came in from hospital. We will now merge the council dataset to births hospital. So if we go back to our R script, again, we need to see if there is a column which contains unique values in our council dataset. And if we go to council, we will look at the CA column because that is the column we are going to use for our merge. And we know that from when we looked at our data dictionary on the Public Health Scotland website earlier. So let's go back to our R script, and we want to know the length, open brackets, of unique, open brackets, of council, $CA. Run the line of code, and you will see that we have 36 unique values. But if we go up to our data set, you will see that we have 44 observations, which means that there are duplicate values within our CA column, and we can't have that for our merge. For the purposes of this video, I had a more detailed look previously at the values contained within the CA column, and it appears that some are duplicated because the name of the council area has changed. So the old name is in and the new name is in. However, the CA code remained static between the two versions of the council name. In this project, I'm not going to be concerned with what the old council area was called. However, if you were doing this in real life, you would need to check with the user or the person requesting the project to understand whether or not they were concerned with what the old name and the new name were. And if they were concerned with the old name, you would need to do a bit more data manipulation before you could do the merge. In our case though, if we go to the council data frame and we scroll across, we have a column called HB date archived, and if we click on the drop down list you can see that there are a number of archived dates. What we will do is we will remove the rows which have an archive date, and that's quite easy to do. So if we go back to our R script, we want to change our council data frame, so we are going to type in council, and into our new data frame we want to put in our old data frame called council. However, we are going to remove a few rows. So to do that, we just do open square brackets, then we will put open brackets and the name of the column which we are going to use for our filter, which is council $HB date archived. For our filter, let's just go back to council for a second. We want to keep the NA rows and remove anything that's got a value. If it has a value, it would be classed as a completed case. So go back here to our script and we type in complete and select dot cases. But obviously, those are the ones we want to remove. So we want the ones that are not complete cases. And to do that, all we need to do is before the word complete, put an exclamation mark. So it reads not complete cases of the council HB date archive column, bring in to the council data frame. We don't want to just bring in this one column though, we want to bring in all the other columns. And to do that, we need to go after the closing bracket here, put a comma, and we don't need to put anything else because we're bringing in all the other columns. Run that line of code. And you will see that council now only contains 32 observations, but still has 13 variables. If you're eagle-eyed, you'll now be saying, but Pauline, earlier we had 36 unique values. You now only have 32, you've lost 4. And that is correct because some of the observations which had a date archive row didn't have a change of name. The area just disappeared from the records. It was merged probably with another area. And again, if you were using this in real life, you would need to go back to your user or the person in charge of the project and say, is it correct that we can remove these other 4 observations? So your work is not always done just by doing your merge. You've got to keep referring back to your actual data. Anyway, we are happy for the time being with what we have done. So all we now need to do is our merge. Again, for the purposes of demonstration in this video, I will set up a new data frame. You don't need to do this. You can merge this in with the births data frame if that's what you chose to do earlier. So I will call my new one births hospital underscore council, and we want to merge, open brackets, the name of the first data set which we want to merge, and again we're doing left joins, so we want our larger data set, which is births hospitals, because remember that was our new data set following our previous merge. So we want births hospital, comma, our second data frame is council, so we type in council, comma, then by.x equals, and if you go to your births hospital data set, remember that our column that we are going to merge on is now called ca.x as a result of our previous merge. So we go back to our R script, open double quote marks, and we are doing ca.x. Outside our double quote marks, put a comma, by.y equals, and in our council data frame, we know our column is called ca, so double quotes, ca. Come outside your double quotes, put a comma, and all dot x equals true. Again, we are putting that in to make it clear that we are doing a left join. And now if we run that line of code, when using third-party data, as I have done in this video, there is always a risk that you will find some factual inaccuracies. One such example here is the CA code ending 50 for North Lanarkshire is associated with a hospital in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is not in North Lanarkshire. Regardless of the data quality, the concepts in this video are correct. And if you prefer the data to be more factually accurate, then in the line of code which we just created, swap by.x ca.x to by.x equals ca.y. Let's continue on. We have our new data set with 7,951 observations still. Excellent. And we have 32 variables. Does that look right? Well, let's have a look what we had before. We had 20 variables and we had 13 coming in, which is 33. But because these two CA columns merge when they come in, we have one less column in our final data frame. So that takes us down to 32. So all looks good to me. That is as far as I will take this project in this video. There are, of course, other ways you could have done the merge. This video only demonstrates one way. For instance, you could have merged hospitals with council areas before merging with births, or you could have merged births, councils, and then hospitals. There are so many variations available to you. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to hear more from me, please click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.